Today, I'm going to tell the story of Olaudah Equiano, a once enslaved African turned abolitionist. He is known for his autobiography, The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vasa, the African, and it's considered to be one of the first and most influential memoir of someone who traveled the Middle Passage. Olaudah was born in 1745 in Esaka, in the province of Ibo, in the Kingdom of Benin on the coast of Guinea. He spends a great deal of time talking about marital and gender relations in Osaka, law and punishment, culture and music. He talks about religion and the local economy, and farming and manufacturing. The detail in which he wrote with broke lots of stereotypes in the West, stereotypes that said Africans were barbaric and illiterate. Olaudah grew up training in the art of war from a very young age. One random day, he and his sister were left home alone when two men and a woman kidnapped them, tying their hands and covering their mouths. His sister was torn from him, and Olaudah was given to his first master at the age of 11. Soon after, he was sold again and carried to a town called Tinma, where he tasted and saw cocoa and sugar for the first time. Eventually, he was taken to the coast, where he sees his first slave ship. He says that he was terrified. He's put below deck, where the smell was so bad that all the Africans were crying together. They were flogged, sick, and forced to eat. After months of near starvation, they arrived in Bridgetown, Barbados, where they were examined like animals. Now, it's 1754, and Olaudah is shipped to North America, where he arrives to a house in Virginia. One of the first things that he said he saw were black women slaves and iron muzzles. Here, he is called Jacob, but on the ships, he was called Michael. Not long after arriving in Virginia, he is bought by Henry Pascal, a former lieutenant in the Royal Navy, who renames him Gustavus Vasa. Pascal takes him back to England with him, and after years of assisting the ship's crew in battles during the 7 Years' War, Pascal sends him to Great Britain to his sister-in-law so that he could attend school. He converts to Christianity in 1759, and 3 years later was again sold to Captain James Durand and shipped back to the Caribbean. And again, he was sold to the American Quaker Robert King. King helped him with his fluency in Christianity and taught him the businesses of trading, and promised that for £40, his purchasing price, he could buy his freedom. In 1766, he achieved this, and 2 years later, he traveled back to Britain while still working at sea, and in 1773, he traveled as a free man to the North Pole and then to Central America with Dr. Charles Irving. By the 1780s, he had settled in London, where he became involved in the abolitionist movement. He worked closely with Quakers and Anglicans who opposed the slave trade. By 1789, he had written his memoir, and on the cover is him in British clothing, holding the biblical book of Acts. I mentioned that he converted to Christianity during his time in school in Britain. Olaudah's memoir is deeply shaped by his vision of the Christian church being an inclusive community of British and African Christians. His knowledge of the New Testament gave way to his complex explorations of kinship, testimony, salvation, race, bondage, and diaspora. It was the first influential slave narrative of what became a large literary genre, and many scholars refer to it as a prototype of all subsequent slave narratives. Traditionally, Olaudah's memoir has been viewed as a representation of the collective experience of slavery, but I want to point out that his advancement, eventual wealth, and literacy made him unique compared to most other slaves of his time. Olaudah offers an incredibly rich account of the distances that enslaved Africans traveled, and he cannot be forgotten.